Multiple reports have indicated the Atlanta Hawks are deeply interested in acquiring Raptors' top star in Pascal Siakam, but Toronto has a very high asking price that they're looking to get in return for Pascal, and that has shut down a lot of negotiations and trade talks regarding the Raptors' top stars. But not with the Atlanta Hawks, as they are desperately trying to acquire Pascal this offseason, and they have some assets that they're willing to throw out there. So we'll discuss what the Atlanta Hawks could potentially offer if they get desperate enough, if a deal could potentially go down, and would it be smart for the Toronto Raptors to actually do this? So lots of crazy stuff to break down, but let's dive into this report, because basically the Hawks are trying to persuade the Toronto Raptors into a deal for Pascal Siakam. The Hawks have been trying to acquire Pascal in a trade with the Toronto Raptors. We've heard this. This has been news that has come out over the past couple weeks. A couple reports, Jake Fisher, Bleacher Report, different sources have indicated the Hawks are a serious threat to land Pascal Siakam. But now, in a video a couple days ago, yesterday, I'm not sure when it came out, but news came out from Chris Haynes, essentially that it's unlikely Pascal is going to get traded because there's a growing interest and sentiment in Toronto Raptors star Pascal Siakam, who's on an expiring deal, would not re-sign with the team who attempts to trade for him, as his preference is to remain with the Toronto Raptors. Now, I recently discussed how this is something that I think could write off a lot of those potential rumors, those potential trades, the talks that we've been hearing over the past month that have kind of been involving Pascal Siakam, because it's risky to try to acquire a rental. It's risky to sort of bring someone in and hope, hey, maybe they'll re-sign, especially when you have Masai Ujiri who's asking for significant asking prices for the team. And I discussed how it's a positive for the Toronto Raptors to have a star that wants to stay. I love that Pascal wants to be here, wants to remain a Toronto Raptor, all that sort of stuff. Now, some people have also brought up that if Pascal Siakam makes an All-NBA team, he could be getting close to $285 million in a Supermax with the Toronto Raptors, so it makes sense that he wants to stay on a team where he's eligible for that contract, a place where he's comfortable to max his personal value. So there's two channels you can sort of look at it from that view, that perspective. I'm just happy a star player, loves Toronto, wants to stay, is embracing the city, all that sort of stuff. But the Atlanta Hawks, despite all this chatter, despite all the reports that the Toronto Raptors are unlikely to deal Pascal due to amongst a lot of reasons, Hawks are still trying to push. They're still trying to go at it. Basically, that the Atlanta Hawks aren't letting a Pascal Siakam talks go away that easy. No team has been more closely tied to a Siakam deal than Atlanta, who have reportedly been trying without much success to persuade the Toronto Raptors into a deal. And so, they're not letting it go that easy, and basically, the Atlanta Hawks really want to get a trade done that, one, propels them back into, at least the mid-tier of the playoffs. They've consistently been a first-round exit ever since they made that conference finals run a few seasons ago. They don't want to give up Trae Young, but they want to propel their team forward, but also get under the luxury tax. This news also came out that the Hawks are under a mandate from ownership to get under the luxury tax, per Brian Windhorst. So DeAndre Hunter, John Collins, and Clint Capella have all been mentioned in various trade talks this offseason, and apparently John Collins, right, is a guy that has been thrown out there a bunch in potential trade talks and potential trade discussions that have been shot down across the league. And apparently DeAndre Hunter, I believe this is the report, that DeAndre Hunter is the guy that people want to be. I'm bringing up the wrong screenshots. Essentially, Hunter and Capella have been drawing more interest across the NBA. So what does this mean for the Toronto Raptors? What could the Atlanta Hawks potentially offer up? Now, I had a screenshot pulled up essentially saying that the Atlanta Hawks are willing to trade anyone besides Trae Young. And the big brunt of this discussion that was coming out over the past few days was, would a DeJounte Murray trade? A guy coming in, puts up a really solid stats at the guard position, 21 points per game, 5 rebounds, 6 assists. 34% from the three-point line, could get better. He has some rough shot selection, but is very effective at scoring, in the lane, slashing, playing elite defense. He would be the centerpiece of an Atlanta Hawks package if Pascal Siakam were to be sent over to Atlanta. So that's an interesting piece. That's definitely a starting package that shouldn't have Masai Ujiri just immediately hanging up the phone, assuming the Atlanta Hawks are willing to attach other assets. And they certainly would. They would have to attach other assets. Another guy that's mentioned that could be in one of these deals, John Collins, who's on a very big contract and isn't really living up to that sort of contract standards. 13.6 rebounds, under 30% from behind the three-point line, isn't that effective on defense, isn't really a dude that I'd be that interested in bringing in, even for free, because the contract is just brutal. So I don't look at him as a huge plus in potential trade negotiations. You look at other guys that could potentially be in deals. DeAndre Hunter is more intriguing in my opinion. Might be redundant on the Raptors roster, but averages 15 points, 4 rebounds, shoots 35% from behind the three-point line, is streaky. But the thing about DeAndre Hunter is he's dealt with some injuries at points over the course of his early NBA career. So, you have OG Anunoby, you have Scotty Barnes, and now you have Grady Dick, who can come in and all play that wing position. So Gary Trent Jr. just resigned. There's not a huge need for a DeAndre Hunter in comparison with Pascal Siakam, what he's providing to this team. So there's value there, but not something that's super encouraging. And, I believe these are Clint Capella's stats popping up. Those are Gary's, right? Clint Capella is just a solid center. That's probably a minor downgrade over Jakob Poeltl. So not a bunch of crazy guys on the Atlanta Hawks in combination that could sort of make things work. And the worst thing about it as well is the Atlanta Hawks do not have a lot of their draft picks going forward, and I don't believe any of their firsts are actually eligible to be traded, as they traded every consecutive year in order to acquire DeJounte Murray. They could throw in a few pick swaps, but again, that's not something that we'd be very interested in if Pascal Siakam's going to Atlanta. Maybe in the far future, they could be decent assets. So you're not getting a lot of draft capital, so the best offer that the Atlanta Hawks could really send over to the Toronto Raptors is DeJounte Murray, DeAndre Hunter, and depending on how you view him, Kobe Buffkin is their most recent draft pick. He was selected with the 15th overall selection. I know a lot of Raptors fans are sort of looking at him as a potential prospect we could have selected, but, had interesting stats out there in college, where he's a 6'4" guard, averaged 14 points per game, couple of assists, 35% from the three-point line. Potential is there, but not a guy that is getting me overly exhilarated to bring back a sort of mid-level package for a Pascal Siakam trade. Now, there is the route you could say about Pascal's. If he makes All-NBA, there's that sort of route. Then you're handcuffed to a potentially close to $300 million contract for Pac, which would be a heck of a lot of money. I see what people are saying on that front. Again, it's not a sure thing he's going to make an All-NBA team. It's not a sure thing that max contract, super max contract is what he's going to sign. So, keeping a guy that's happy in the organization, that wants to be around, tied to this team until we hear he wants out or potentially explores free agency, all that sort of stuff. I'd like to keep Pascal Siakam on this roster, even though DeJounte Murray, DeAndre Hunter, a bunch of pick swaps, and maybe Kobe Buffkin wouldn't be a horrific return for Pac. Not something that I'm jumping out of my seat to sort of make happen, to sort of go down, even if it makes sense for the Toronto Raptors to shake up their roster, even if Fred VanVleet's likely to leave and we need more players playing that point guard position. I don't know. You don't want to sell $1 for a few 25-cent pieces. Even though DeJounte Murray isn't a 25-cent piece, maybe like a 75% piece to Pascal's full dollar. But I don't know. Call me crazy. I want to keep Pascal Siakam on this team. And, with the Grady Dick signing, a few other things that we could potentially do this summer, especially if potential Fred sign and trade does end up happening, we might have a shaken up enough roster. Doesn't make sense to sell low on talent after a down year for the Toronto Raptors. But let me know what you guys think. The Atlanta Hawks get desperate enough. They give us all their assets. Maybe it's something we can't say no to, but I'm still not that high on potential Atlanta Hawks packages, even if they do sell the farm to us, get extremely desperate, unless there's a 3-team deal that gets me really excited. But let me know what you guys think about all this Toronto Raptors news. You guys are the best for making this far. Subscribe to the Raptors Digest. We want to stay up to date with everything regarding this team. Anyways, I'm signing off. Cheers.